be here. Thank you very much for having me. So I am the coordinator to End Homelessness for the City of Minneapolis and Hennepin County, and tonight I will be talking briefly about homelessness in our community and what solutions we are engaging to end it for men, women, children, and youth. In addition to my position as coordinator, I'm also a documentary photographer. So many of the photos you will see tonight are of people I have met throughout the state who either are or have experienced homelessness. On any given night in Minnesota, 9,200 people are homeless, approximately 1/3 of them in Hennepin County. We know that about 350 people are literally sleeping on the streets and under bridges in Minneapolis. Many more are doubled and tripled up with friends or couch hopping. 47% of all people experiencing homelessness are children and young adults. Many of these are homeless youth, not accompanied by their parents. Of those with their parents, most are under 6 years old. The effects of homelessness on children are dramatic. Compared to those with homes, homeless children have 4 times the rate of developmental delays, 2 times the rate of learning disabilities, 3 times the rate of emotional and behavioral problems, and many more chronic and severe health conditions. 25% of homeless men in the state are veterans. The latest survey done in Minnesota shows that we are now seeing recent combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan ending up in our homeless shelter system. 1/3 of homeless women are victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is second only to poverty as the reason women and their children become homeless. 45% of these women report they stay in abusive relationships because they simply have nowhere else to live. 28% of homeless adults are working, 12% working full-time. But 64% of these folks earn less than $10 an hour and 32% less than $8 an hour. So even for those working, housing remains out of reach. Someone would need to work 80+ hours a week at minimum wage to afford a place to live in Minneapolis. In fact, there's not a community in the country where someone can work full-time at minimum wage and afford housing. Wages simply have not kept pace with the cost of housing. Many people believe that homelessness has always been a problem and always will be. In fact, while people certainly have experienced homelessness throughout time, it wasn't until the early 1980s that homelessness rose in American consciousness as a large urban problem. In fact, there were virtually no homeless children in the 80s. Many factors led to the rise in homelessness, most significantly, the dramatic loss of affordable housing stock due to nationwide urban renewal. It's important to remember that there was a time before widespread homelessness, because then we can imagine a future without it. And we can end homelessness. There is a growing national movement that is changing the paradigm from managing the problem to actually ending it in our communities. We now have evidence-based practices that are showing impressive results nationwide. We are utilizing these practices, and many of them are found in our newly developed 10-year plan to end homelessness, Heading Home Hennepin. Last year, we brought together a commission representing the broad community to develop this plan. It was approved by the city and county, and we're now beginning to implement the 6 goals, 30 recommendations, and over 50 specific action steps. Our first big goal is prevention. We know we cannot ultimately end homelessness unless we prevent it in the first place. We're using 2 main strategies. First, we will keep people in the housing that they have whenever possible by providing assistance that will bridge whatever crisis they are facing. This is called our Family Homeless Prevention Program. We know it works. It's also cost-effective. We will double this program to serve twice as many people. The second main strategy for preventing homelessness is making sure people don't become homeless when they leave public institutions. For example, 70% of homeless youth have come out of our foster care or juvenile justice systems. We can intervene earlier in the lives of these kids to ensure they have the skills and resources they need so they don't end up in shelters or on the streets. This is also true with prisons and jails. Currently, 1,000 people a year enter Hennepin County without safe and stable housing from state or corrections, county corrections, and we will do better discharge planning to make sure that they don't end up on the streets. The next big goal for our plan is to develop a 24/7 system of coordinated outreach. Right now, we have very few outreach workers. Therefore, the police department has become our default outreach system. This is costly and completely ineffective. We're moving away from a criminal justice response to a social service response, and it works. We're modeling our efforts after the city of Philadelphia, which has seen a 50% reduction in street homelessness after implementing a 24/7 outreach system coupled with housing. Housing is the biggest goal of our plan. Heading Home Hennepin calls for the creation of 5,000 new housing opportunities over the course of the next 10 years. We're using diverse models to increase housing choices for people, including a model called Housing First, which simply means we're focusing on getting people into housing first and then providing the services they need to stay housed. We want to break down barriers for people so they can get the services they need to escape homelessness. One way we're doing this is through a new event called Project Homeless Connect. It brings together hundreds of community volunteers and services and provides all of those services in one location. So instead of an individual having to travel all over town to get connected to housing, employment, benefits, and medical care, they can access all of those resources in one place. We've held 3 events so far. The last one served 1,300 people experiencing homelessness. And our next event is on October 1st at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Finally, we want to build the opportunity for self-support through better employment and educational opportunities with the goal of raising incomes, which of course is the key to accessing housing and escaping homelessness. So Heading Home Hennepin is a community plan. It was developed by the community and will take all partners working together to make it a success. This includes government, businesses, the faith community, providers, academia, designers, people experiencing homelessness themselves, and all citizens. Together we can and we will end homelessness for our neighbors by preventing it whenever possible and by providing the outreach services, housing, and other supports necessary to break the cycles of homelessness once and for all. So to learn more about how you can help, the contact information for my office is in the program, so please get in touch with my office, and thank you very much for the time to be here today.